Welcome everyone, or welcome back, whichever the case may be. All right, for this one today, I did it on 9x12 Legion brand Yupo. I used Ranger inks, Vineyard, Boysenberry, Cobalt, and Stream, and the 99% isopropyl alcohol, and the, I'm sorry y'all, my mind's not working, Pinata brass, the Jacquard Pinata line of alcohol inks, the brass color for the metallic. All right, this is something that I had seen on, I don't even remember where I saw it first, honestly. So I don't know who came up with this technique. This was not me. But I had seen this a year or so ago, I guess, and had wanted to do it and just completely forgot about it. Too much other stuff going on. And recently I've run across a couple of other videos of people doing this. So I decided I had to play around a little and try it out. Now, I apologize. This is sped up quite a bit because if it were not, this would be an over 2.5 hour long video. This was not a fast process. It's a lot of wisping and, moving your ink, and it just takes a while. So I apologize if, things are going too quickly for you to really be able to tell good what I'm doing. I'll try to explain as we go. All right, so first I put down the brass. Well, first I found some containers. I just used things that were around the house. You can see this is just a drinking glass. I used I think it was a sauerkraut jar that I washed out. And later on, I used a smaller container that was just a little icing container out of some cinnamon rolls that I'd gotten for the girls. So just use whatever you have on hand. The heavier stuff works better, but you can use whatever. I've seen people use drink lids before. So let me mention real quick, the people that I know of that have done these videos or done this style that I've seen so that you all can check them out is Scary Hair Lady Art, which, by the way, greatest name ever. I love that. That's just awesome. TSR Creations, Zamino Art, and Randy H Art. They all have some great stuff on their channels. A lot of mixed media things, acrylics, resins. It just depends on what your main interest is. But they all do quite a few different things on their channels. So they're all worth checking out. And the Randy H Art, by the way, is Randy with an I. So I will try to remember to put links to their channels in the description down below. They are all ones that I subscribe to, that I always enjoy watching what they've got going on. All right, so I put down the brass first. The only reason I did the brass first is because that's what I've seen these other people do. I don't know if that makes a difference or not. One day I'll try it, putting the ink first and then the brass, and see. One thing I definitely want to mention is I used way too much ink. Just way too much ink, especially on these first two circles, the big ones. You can see what a wide, dark circle I've got from the ink. And as I went along, I did try to use less ink on the smaller circles because I realized almost immediately that I had really gone way too far overboard with the ink. Now, I did want, a darker circle in there, but I mean, I had so much ink that it covered up the brass. It was, this huge wide band of it was just bigger than what I had initially wanted. So keep that in mind if you're going to try and follow my video to do something like this. Take it easy on the ink. because yeah, it's crazy. And especially the table that I'm having to paint on right now is not level, and I just have no way to level it good. It's made out of 2x4s, and so they're not level either. There's just not. I mean, it doesn't. It's a beautiful table. I absolutely love it, but it's really difficult to paint on. All my ink tended to run towards the bottom of the circle, and it also would run up under a little bit because, I had these open spaces where the 2x4s were joined together. There's a little groove there, so I did have some spaces where I was having trouble keeping too much ink from going under whatever I was using at the time. Once I got the ink and the brass and stuff down, I did this just like I would any other painting. I tried to use just a little alcohol, just a few drops. I did not want to spread this really far. Wanted to keep my wispies in fairly close. But I did have to go back every now and then. I wouldn't add enough. I'd have to go back and put down a little bit more. But, just keep that in mind. The amount of alcohol that you use is going to affect how far out you need to spread your stuff. And I also didn't want to have to overwork a section to get the alcohol to dry. So, I didn't want my inks all blending into one color because I was already having a little difficulty with that, just where they had run sort of around the edge of the jar. And then when I was drying them, before I lifted the jar up, of course, the air from the dryer kind of blew them around a little bit more. So what I would recommend doing is just putting down a spot of ink here and there. And then, as you're blowing it around with your hairdryer or whatever you're using, it's gonna push them closer together. Or even wait until, just put down your brass and then put your color down after you've lifted your jar even. So, and spread it out from there. That's something that I may try and do eventually. I did do that a little bit on this. And y'all, I'm sorry. I see where it's going in and out of focus on here. Where I have my phone right now, where I'm using it to video, I can't see the image on the screen. So I know that it's going to drive y'all crazy for a little bit. So hopefully that will stop. This is the first time that I've actually gone back and seen anything other than short little clips of this video as I was stitching things together, because this took me all day long. I had one of those days where I was dropping things. I dropped a bottle of ink. I just sort of knocked it over, and then I did that stupid thing where you go to grab something real quick and you hit it and it flies everywhere. So I ended up spending a good half hour trying to clean ink off of everything. The floor, this table has benches. It was all over one of the benches. It was on the table legs. It was on my chair that I was sitting in. It was all over my clothes. And luckily I had on old clothes, but wasn't going to matter if they got stained up. So, but yeah, luckily I got all the ink up. But that was just sort of the culmination of what has been a nutty day. So anyway, I got sidetracked running down a rabbit hole there for a minute. Yeah, this is a long process. It did take me a long time, and I was having to sort of walk away pretty frequently just because I needed to walk away with having a frustrating day anyway. There was a lot of stopping to do stuff for the girls, and I just needed to step away from it for a little while too. So, but plan for a time. If you're going to do this, plan for a lot of extra time. So you'll see I did my wispies to the outside of the circle and to the inside. I have seen it done both ways, and I like it both ways. But for this one, I decided to go ahead and do it both directions instead of just on the outside. For that matter, you could do it just on the inside. Right here, I went back, I put down some more brass because I had completely lost all of the brass by the time I got done. It was totally covered up with the far too much ink that I had used. So, and I did really want that brass ring in there. And y'all see all these spots all over the paper. That's indicative of the day that I was having. I ended up with, ink just splattered everywhere. It was, and the alcohol bottle, every time I would turn it over, a little like air bubble would pop out the end with, and splatter drops of alcohol. And so, yeah, that's one reason I ended up doing the splatters along the paper, because there was no way to get those off. I tried with one and actually made it look worse. So after that, it was like, yep, I quit. So that was my little icing container. You can do this with, anything you want. I like the different sizes. I've seen them done with just all one size. I've seen one circle. I've seen two circles. I've seen several circles. It's entirely wherever your ink leads you, wherever your painting itself leads you, then go for it. Now, you see, on this one, I did start trying to use a little bit less ink, but I ended up going back and adding a little more. I think this is the one, as I was trying to wisp it out some, because I ended up not having enough ink in some places. So, it can be kind of trial and error. And this was a learning process for me, trying to go around this circle the way I was too. I've not tried to do something like that, exactly like this. But it did remind me of the geode alcohol ink painting that I had done. It was pretty similar, just trying to follow a line on something. So this, I have to admit, this turned out to be probably my favorite painting that I have ever done. There was just something about it when I got done that I just absolutely was in love with. So don't know if I'll do a lot more videos on these, just because this is a really long process, but I will definitely be doing more paintings like this myself, just because I loved the painting. If, for those of you who are interested, if you will comment down below, I can go back and do something like just a one ring one in real time, if you feel like you need to see a little bit better and slower exactly what it is that I'm doing. But it's really not, there's really no new technique for me in this other than putting a jar down and, squirting the ink around it. And I did try to get the ink mostly dry before I lifted my jar, whatever glass, whatever I had down in that spot. I did try to get the ink mostly dry before I picked it up. So if you pick it up too soon, your ink is obviously going to spread. So you do want to kind of, run your dryer around it enough to get it reasonably dry before you pick it up. And it does stick a little bit. The ink is sticky, and a little bit of it gets up under your glass, whatever you're using. So keep that in mind. Don't use something that's going to get damaged by ink, first of all. But it will, don't panic if you notice as you're lifting up your thing that it's sticking to your paper a little bit, because it did that on every single circle that I did. So, and the first time it happened, was like, oh no, I was just waiting for it to sort of rip loose all of the ink that was around it, but it didn't. So it'll be just fine. Trying to think if there are. Oh, I did use this on the cool setting for the most part. The the only time that I used my hairdryer on the heat setting was when I was trying to dry the inks around the jar glass thing. I don't know what to call it, because I use something different. Around my circle, how's that? I did use heat setting on that because I was trying to keep the ink from drifting so far. You'll see right here, I tried like putting down just a drop or two of ink at a time and then drying it to try to keep it from running together quite so much. It probably would be a good idea, or would have been a good idea for me, to not try to use so many colors the first time that I ever tried to do this. But this is one of my all-time favorite color combinations, and for some reason I was just bound and determined that this is what I was going to do. I may end up doing another one before long that's got some reds, orange, and yellow, sort of like a bunch of suns colliding or something. So, I don't know, we'll see. But anyway, back to the video thing. Do let me know if there's enough interest in having one done in real time that just maybe has one circle or possibly two. Just comment down below and let me know, so that I won't bore everyone to death if nobody wants to see one. And it'll let me know if there are enough of you, interested in seeing it for me to go ahead and do that. Because it may turn into a fairly long one, even with less circles, because those first two big circles are what took me the longest, to do. They did take quite a while. All right, let's see. Other tips for this one. Not a lot. You'll see I did try to sort of join my wispies on my circles, but there's so many different ways that you could try to finish this, and I was thinking of several while I was painting that you could leave it more abstract in places, not wisp it out so much so that they're joined more. There's just a lot of different things that you could do with this. It's going to be something that's going to be fun to go back and play with at some point and see what other different looks I can get out of it. But like I said, this one I was just absolutely in love with. The color combination, and there's a ramen noodle bowl. I was trying to find anything I could that had circles the size that I wanted. So one of those microwavable ramen noodle things. Anyway, if you have questions about something you couldn't see on here well enough, I'll do my best to answer them. But like I said, there was not a whole lot of anything different other than just doing the ink around the circle initially. So, and I'm sorry, I'm seeing now, how far off center where I'm working is, and I apologize, because all of y'all that have watched me before know I'm really bad to move my paper. So I'm always scooting it or turning it or something. And with where my phone is, like I said, I can't see what's on the screen. So hopefully I didn't get stuff too far out of the shot too much. Okay, to the splatters, I'm going to go ahead and go to that part. Like I said, I probably would have done it anyway because I had seen one done like that. I think it was Randy H. Art that did some splatters on hers, and I really liked the way it looked. And I might have done them anyway, but I had so much ink splattered, I didn't have a choice. I had to. But I am super happy that I did because they really, for me, they sort of helped pull everything together. It was really pretty before, and I really liked it. But once I put those splatters on it, it was better for me anyway. So, keep that in mind. If you are looking at a painting of yours and you just feel like it needs something, sometimes just splattering some ink over the painting in a little bit. You don't want to look like it rained ink on your painting, but to put it in certain areas, or to just take your a super fine paintbrush, like a super fine liner brush, and barely touch your ink in places. You can either use alcohol, and that'll sort of push the ink back and leave it a very pastel light color underneath where the circle is, or you can use ink and use a contrasting color of ink or a color that you use somewhere else on your painting and make dots with that. You can use Posca pens, the acrylic paint pens, and draw lines. There's so many different things you can do that you'll be amazed at what it can add to a painting when you do some of this other stuff to it. To ones that you feel like just really need something. But there's also times that simple is better. So, just bear that in mind. You might want to not try to embellish every painting that you do, but sometimes it really does help. So, before I end up getting to the end of the video, I just want to say thank you all so much for hanging with me. Those of you all who've been watching my videos since the very beginning, which I've now forgotten how long ago that was. 2 years ago, almost. Anyway, a couple of years. I can't even remember. Those of you all who were watching me when I started out doing videos from a hotel room, trying to figure out a way to set my phone up and, protect and paint on a desk in a hotel room. So, but I appreciate every one of you all that has been willing to spend your time watching my channel. It means a great deal to me. I hope that I have been helpful to you all in some ways, and not driven you too crazy with some of my talking and running down rabbit holes. So, but I appreciate it. I really do love every one of you. It means a lot to me that you all are willing to take time out of your days to watch these videos. And I really appreciate it. I can't tell you how much. All right, so back to this. Yeah, that was just some alcohol on a cotton swab because I had too much dark ink right there that ran out. There was no way to make it look good. So I did just take a cotton swab and wipe off a little bit of the ink. I did use yupo for this deliberately because I did want some of that staining just so it added a little bit of dimension under the ink in places. That's one of the things that I really do like about yupo. It's a little tricky to learn to use, but it's worth it in the end. I don't want to use it all the time because I don't always want that staining, but it is really, you can get some really cool effects with it. So it's worth practicing with on occasion once you've gotten the hang of things with moving the ink around pretty good, especially. So, all right, this is where I got to the splatters. I just squirted a little bit of ink in the dish I already had out there and just, you know, dip my brush in it and tap the brush a little to put the splatters on. And I did a few splatters in each color that I had put on the painting. You know, possibly was too much, but that was how it ended up. Some of the splatters ended up smaller than I wanted and some bigger, but overall, I was really happy with it. So, all right, well, y'all, I really appreciate you joining me again for another video. And like I said, let me know if you would be interested in seeing a real-time version of this so that you can tell a little bit better what's going on. All right, I love all of you, and I'll be back soon. Bye, everyone.